some of your like 2 hour long. Anyway, you're recording. Hi, Kevin.
Hey man, people, today we got Elliott Lester, director. I mean, you've done so much, but recently people will definitely know your name because we recently looked at the Thicket, which was so good. It is such a good, I really enjoyed the heck out of it. So I appreciate you, you know what I mean? Like agreeing to stop by and so we can have a little conversation, man.
I went all of a sudden upside down for some reason.
Yeah,
What's going on there?
I don't know.
How do we fix that? That's wild. I
Hmm.
haven't seen that before.
No, that is, you
Hang
know
on
what?
a
Let
minute.
me, I'll bring
Hold
you out and let's see if we can. Oh, wait.
on. No, there you
Hey.
go. Let's see if it sticks. Well, thank you so much for saying that. It was a real labor of love. Um, it took Peter Dinklage, who came onto it originally, 10 years before he met me. And then it took me around 3 years, which in terms of a movie is sort of quite lightning quick because most of them take forever.
Mm.
And that's one of the sort of things that filmmakers, they sort of, there's a sort of refrain when you're like, well, how long did your movie take? It's like, wow, 15 years, 15 years, 20 years. I mean, and then, I have a friend right now um, doing a project that's taken literally 15 years.
Boy.
But here's the thing. What's ironic is then all of a sudden you go onto Netflix or something and you see these little buttons and it makes it feel like they're doing a movie every 10 minutes.
Yes.
I
Well,
don't know
that
who's doing that.
Yeah, that because I remember there's been those years where you've got similar films dropping kind of around the same time, and people think, oh, they copy. I mean, they must have copied, but it's just like, yo, like it takes so long to do this shit. How the fuck do you think they just decided to copy that next lot of people? Like sometimes these things just happen, which is crazy.
I mean, things like they go in waves, right? Right
Mm.
now. Right. And also they go in like speaking to the Western theme, like Westerns have every sort of like 7 to 11 years, there's a whole slew of Westerns. Right now, we're coming out of this sort of Western. I think a lot of that's inspired by the work of like Taylor Sheridan
Yeah.
on Yellowstone and things like that. And then, now we're entering our remake of 90s action films,
Yep.
which
Yep.
everybody, I talked to an executive recently at Netflix who said to me, you know, what's great is about these 90s action movies is that uh, this generation hasn't seen them. So bring more of them. They haven't seen Die Hard and things like that. So that's what's sort of trending.
Mm.
Um, it's a little bit like, the different facets in terms of the history of cinema. This feels like, the 50s. Where what happened?
I don't even know, man. It's so bizarre.
Right, let's come back. In the 50s, there was a lot of sort of like very super commercial film. And then in the 80s, I don't know if you remember, like The World of Tony Scott and things like that. There was a
Mm.
lot, John McTiernan, and there was a lot of films that were sort of very, very genre based. And I think we're sort of in there. And I think we've come out, sadly, of an era of very sort of important voices, specifically around DEI, movies that were little typically on the margins, and now we're sort of being swept aside. It's also like in America, typically art and movies and TV reflect where you're at politically, and what's happened is we've come all the way to the center.
Yeah, definitely. I think what is always interesting though, when because I'm not against taking that look back, trying to bring back like kind of material or genres and things like that. But a lot of the times when people are like, oh, we can remake those 80s films. they don't, or the 90s films, they don't get what was the charm of those films at the time. Like when they tried to do RoboCop, Total Recall, Point Break, and they just didn't seem to figure out the charm of those films. And so
I
they
think if I can speak to that, that might
Mm,
be how you felt when you were younger. You know, we have it. It's sort of like when you first listen to a band that is sort of unique to you or you feel speaks to you, and then all of a sudden they become commercial or something, or there's a reinvention of them, and we sort of like resent the reinvention. I would argue that you know, what's old is new. You know, the movies that you were seeing in the 90s and the movies that you're now seeing now and movies that you saw in periods of the 70s, the late 70s, you know, Towering Inferno, Airport 77, all these kind of things. You know, each generation has its relationship. Like, think of Star Wars. You know,
mm,
I'm old enough to remember the first three, but I have no relationship to the subsequent ones because
mm.
I'm nostalgic for that. But you know, I think it goes in phases. I think we go in phases of it. You know, also it's a business, an
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah, no, like there's definitely that phase. And I think it's understanding what is made and aimed at you. Because I just couldn't connect with the last trilogy. But I thought Rogue One was outstanding, right? But then you see people that watched Revenge of the Sith and those films and loved them. And when they get re-released, they're like, oh my God, this brought back. And you're just like, cool, right? Because it had its audience. It had the people that love it, that were able to connect with it, like you connected with, you know, maybe that first trilogy or other films.
Right.
Because that's always interesting, you know.
I mean, you know, there's every story that's ever been written has been told 1,000 times.
Mm,
You know, and sort of bringing it back to the Thicket just for a moment, you know, there is that story is a classic Western in that, you know, Westerns when they came out were very much like horror films now, you know, they were genre films. They weren't seen as sort of glamorous, sort of expensive films. And I think my wife's about to walk across. Um, and you know, with westerns, you know, invariably, you know, they have certain tropes. You know, that's the
yeah.
road movie, it's the reluctant gunslinger. You know, like with Unforgiven and things like that. It's the man being challenged by himself. It's the sort of, and what we're dealing with the Thicket is, I can't say the story is that the most original story. You know, the sort of villain that kidnaps the kid is like the Searchers in many ways. You know, the John Wayne film.
Mm,
And you know the man with his last mission. But what you can do as a filmmaker, and Tarantino does this superbly, is you pivot to your point of view. So what I did was I took a very contemporary cast. You know, I broke certain rules with the cast, and they were sort of atypical. And that was my point of view, like hire the best actors you can for the roles and also just shift the perspective. I did a couple of things in the film that are you know, like, you know, I hired a Dominican girl with a large orange afro. You know, obviously Peter is Peter. You know, and I did some surprising you know, I have James Hetfield from the lead singer from Metallica doing
mm.
like his biggest role. No one was expecting Andrew Scholes. I don't know if he's popular in England, but he's
Oh,
a
that's how I heard about the film.
Andrew.
Yeah, that's
Oh wow.
how I knew about this. But he was
Oh
talking about the film last year, right? So I
yeah.
heard him talking about this film he's making with Peter Dinklage, and I'm like, oh shit, okay. But then I didn't see it, and I'm like, what? So when Signature sent me across the Thicket, and then I was like, Andrew Peter, oh shit, it's that film. I was like, oh man, because
I thought
yeah,
Andrew was great. I thought Andrew was great in it, and it wasn't.
oh,
Andrew
best
wasn't
role.
my idea. Andrew wasn't my idea. Andrew was my wife's idea.
Okay.
We She really got me into him, and then obviously Andrew became a friend, you know, and I was lucky enough to go on the podcast with Peter, who rarely does that sort of level of press. Yeah, anyway, bring back to the cast, and sort of like I made a conscious effort with Gbenga Akinnagbe, who's superb, you probably know
Mm,
from Wire.
so good.
I specifically didn't put the N word anywhere in that movie.
Mm.
And I did that because I wanted to consciously make him feel like a truly free man. And you know, there's a lot sort of in there that quite subtle. Um, you know, a lot of female empowerment as well, and also without drawing too much attention to it, Juliette. You know, Juliette is a very unique. You don't see that very often. And one of the mandates in me doing the film was I said to the producers, I said, look, I think we have to make Cutthroat Bill, which was originally written as a man, a woman. And here's why. Because we've taken this journey, and I think that the world can handle it. And I want to be able to sort of demonstrate that.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, there was those interesting choices made, but when you think about it, they're not crazy choices, right? There were black people in the West, right? There was a famous, like,
Bass Reeves.
yes,
Yeah.
right? You've got these famous people who, back in the day, you know, they made white, right? They never talked about, and it's only recently that people are like, "Oh shit, that was a thing," you know?
Well,
And so,
I think invariably that's what one of the great benefits in DEI, and sadly, a lot of those conversations have now shifted away, and especially in America, DEI is like a dirty word. But what was great about DEI, from my point of view, is that it exposed new narratives,
mm,
you know, and it sort of gave permission for those narratives. And in many ways, you know, there was a lot of discussion. I made a movie, Nightingale, with David Oyelowo,
yes,
um, many years ago. And one of the conversations was because I hired a black man. I was told, well, you can't hire him because, you know, diversity doesn't travel. And I stood by it and I said, I don't really care. This is outside of sort of ethnicity. This is the right actor for the job. I really didn't care about that. But what's happened now, even though we make little bits of progress, you know, the number one movie in the world right now is Sinners. And
yeah.
thank God it is, you know. Um,
But they're trying to diminish what Ryan has done with Sinners, which
Oh, I
is,
thought that was disgraceful.
oh,
I
it's
thought
crazy.
there was an interview where they talked about his deal,
Mm,
and I sat there watching it, and I was like, well, Tarantino, whose movies have made less money, um, had the same deal. That deal
yeah,
isn't new,
no,
but you know, basing that around, I mean, the subtext of it was about, well, you know, you're a black man, how dare you?
yeah.
To me, is part of the sort of problem,
Mm,
you
mm.
know, and sort of anyway, I don't want to get too political because I'm not qualified to talk about it. I can only just give you my opinion. But I like certain aspects of DI. I like that, you know, we've been able to sort of get new stories, you know, and bring those to the surface. And, you know, ultimately, like with Sinners, it doesn't matter. If the film is good, they will come.
Exactly. I
That's
think
it.
that's always the big thing, right? You and it doesn't matter if you have huge stars in a film. If you've got a good story, you know what I mean? That's what people want. They want a good story. And you need to obviously, you need to let people know you've got a good story. But once they know, I think people hunger for that.
Well, we're also in an era where tech tech studios are owned by tech companies, where they
Mm,
used to be owned by other things, people that loved film. And I think you're seeing that reflected. You know, if you're a studio boss, and Lord, that is a very tough job, you know, you need to back sure things, and sure things are
yeah.
giant IP, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Even like Minecraft. Minecraft took 15 years to make, because no one was quite sure about it. Didn't trust it. We're like, well, we know Marvel is sort of a surefire thing, DC to a certain degree. And if you're a studio boss, you're risk averse. You want to hold on to your job. You've got a
Mm,
bunch of films coming out from Warner Brothers. There's a brilliant executives, Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi. They're taking some real risks. Sinners was theirs. There's a
yeah.
new Paul Thomas Anderson movie coming out. They've got like the reimagining of Frankenstein from Maggie Gyllenhaal. I mean,
Which
they're
sounds
taking they're taking some swings. Thank goodness that they are. I don't know too much about the sort of UK sort of film business. Obviously, you're dealing with much smaller films, you know, but they're very strong voices. There is a movie I'm a huge Danny Dyer fan,
okay. Okay.
and I feel that I saw this trailer for Marching Powder, which looked really fun. Yeah, a little sticky, but fun. But I'm really going off topic, but I feel Danny Dyer, if he were to do Richard III or Hamlet or Macbeth.
oh,
I
oh
know
man.
you're laughing. I know you're laughing, but here's the thing. That man can, I can't believe I'm talking about, I've worked with Mark Rylance and Paddy Considine and people like this, but I think Danny Dyer is wholly underrated. I think his theatrical chops doing Shakespeare would be something.
No, I'm laughing because I think it would be interesting, right? Because I think a problem for people like Danny Dyer is they seem to only be getting a certain type of role. So what's interesting is like taking that person out of that environment and putting them in something different. And so I feel that would be the perfect thing. Give him that type of role. And I think, yeah, we could see something interesting there.
Do you know Craig Fairbrass?
Yes.
He's a really interesting British actor. He was on EastEnders. He did a movie a few years ago called Muscle, which he played a personal trainer who had a whole different life as a drug dealer. It was a very small film, but it was really, really well crafted, really unique voice. And that was a guy who you would never expect. I mean, the cast of EastEnders doing doing that kind of role, and it was tremendous. It didn't get too much attention, but it was pretty phenomenal. But you've such talent in England. I mean, like having worked, on both sides of the pond, it always is. It's kind of sometimes a relief to work with British actors, just because the training is so good. They're
Mm,
really phenomenal. I'm kind of hoping to come back and shoot that at some point soon.
okay. That would be interesting, right?
I mean, I just like right now, Hollywood's a little bit injured. And there's so many things shooting in England right now. I mean, like,
I mean, yeah. I mean, Avengers Doomsday I think that's just started. You just got oh man, what else did I see? I
the
mean,
Star
there's so
Wars,
many big shoots.
the stages are booked up for 5 years.
Yeah, it's
And
great. And they're
firework, which is
building
great,
more.
for England. It's great for
Yeah.
England. Not good for Hollywood right now, but you
Mm.
know.
I mean, what is that like though? Because it does feel that the Hollywood model has changed a lot. You know what I mean? And we're seeing big productions in England, Australia, just Toronto, Vancouver. We're just seeing them in different places.
It's very simple, Kevin. It's economics.
Mm.
An island as well. Northern Ireland is a big hub.
Yeah,
It's cheap. I mean, like, to shoot in America is expensive. Near Atlanta used to be a real hub. They used to do all the Marvel movies now. But, I think a lot of people pulled out of Atlanta for two reasons. One, it's a bit more expensive. And two, because it's so anti-abortion and women's rights are such an issue, you know,
right.
and they decided to sort of disown it. But primarily, the film business is a business, and if they can go somewhere and save 40%, why would you not go there?
Yeah. I mean, that's
But yeah, it's pretty dead. I mean, it's pretty dead here, I have to say. I seldom shoot here. I seldom shoot here. But I love shooting here. Best crews in the world.
mm. Yeah. So with the Thicket, like, how was that kind of looking for locations and finding just the right place to?
Well, originally the movie was supposed to be shot in Almeria in southern Spain, which is a very famous sort of area where they used to shoot all the spaghetti westerns,
Yeah.
like Sergio Leone, Bertucci, I can't remember. And we were originally going to do there, but what happened was COVID happened,
Right.
and the world shut down. We came back to America. Nothing really happened. And then I had some friends in Calgary, Alberta, in Canada, where they shot The Revenant and Hell on Wheels. And I reached out to them and they said, come on over. I mean, it's a very famous sort of place. Unforgiven was shot there. There's Lonesome Dove that was shot there by Walter Hill. I mean, it's sort of a very well-known Western. There are lots of Western towns. So we ended up going and shooting in minus 35 degrees because
Oh my
it was cold. It was really cold. I mean, some of the cast nearly got frostbite.
Whew. Oh,
Tough
hey,
days. Tough days on set.
I mean, it sounds crazy, but do you think that added to like just the ambience and the performance? Because it's just like you're actually dealing with what your characters are meant to be going through.
Yeah, I mean, like all the breath you see all the breath in their cold environment is real. Normally they CGI that, you know. Did it add to the performance? Yes, because it was stressful, you know, and it's bone chilling. Now it was all right for the crew because we're all in like, you know, Canada Goose and Patagonia and things like that. But the cast were wearing, this is really strange. That's sort of what are we doing? And all the cast are sort of like in period clothing.
Mm.
And being in period clothing, you know, and minus 35 is not, it doesn't feel good. I mean, it got so cold one day that we had to shut the shoot down.
Oh shit.
Because what, minus 35, it's, I say it's manageable. But beyond that, with a wind chill of minus 50, that's when your nose starts freezing
Oh.
off. And we had ambulance on set, um, and we had to use it one day. But you know, it's sort of like it wasn't a super long shoot. I mean, The Revenant was like a year. We were nowhere near. There were a couple of months,
Okay.
and we're also because of the timing, we shot in the coldest part of the year. Everybody looked forward to the weekends. And Alberta's a fantastic place to shoot. Crews are fantastic. You know, there's a very famous horseman there. I say horseman. His name's John Scott. He's a legend. And we were able to use him. And like, you know, they've done so many westerns that it was they could
Yeah.
snap into it. It was brilliant. Brilliant to watch.
Okay. Like going in, like other than like the weather, what did you think would be the most difficult kind of aspect of the shoot, you know, doing a Western and all of
Well,
that?
well, here's the thing. Let's just go back for a second. As a director, I was also a producer on it. The thing that you're fighting for is days. That's what you're fighting for.
Right.
And I had flown out a few months ahead of time with this amazing cameraman called Guillermo da Garza, and he was phenomenal. And we scouted, and then the movie shut down, and then the movie went up, and then the movie shut down. And when we flew back, there was like, okay, you've got 5 weeks of prep, which is nothing. It's like, and I said, okay. And they said, and you've got to lose 15 pages of the script.
Ooh.
So, you know, at some point you have to say a Hail Mary and say, okay, I'm going to go and make the movie. So, speaking to what you're saying, the hardest part is knowing that originally you have 35 days and then you have nowhere near that, like
Mm.
23 days, which is sort of like, you know, you suck it in and you go, and we're going to be able to do this. And by the way, that's happened out of 3 out of 6 films that I've done.
Oh shit.
Yeah, you're always fighting days, like it's funny because when you see reviewers and critics, not that they should judge the film. Invariably, what happens is they don't see what we go through.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't see the sort of, we got shut down 11 times on that film.
Boy. Oh man, it must be difficult, like trying to keep the enthusiasm, trying to keep like everyone up when you're going through all of that.
Yeah, but you're the coach. As a director, you're the coach, and you can't crack.
No.
Even in, you show up smiling. I mean, they were talking about pre-production. You're smiling, it's like, that's nothing. We can fix it. Don't worry, we got it. And then, because if you don't and you start cracking, everything comes from you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even though inside I was crying myself to sleep, I never let that on. I was always happy to be. I was happy to be there. It's a privilege to make a film.
Well, I will definitely say that, what I mean, although the production sounds like it was crazy and constantly shifting.
Oh my goodness, yeah, I mean, at some point you go, oh, I'm standing on set with this fantastic team of actors, and then you just let it go. I mean, like, you know, that's that's sort of the job. I mean, look, I on this one we didn't have that. I've done studio stuff, and on the studio things you can get, what you need because they're very well financed. But we're talking about an
Mm.
indie. We're talking about a true indie,
Yeah.
and indies are very hard in as much as very few of them actually cut through. Very few of them actually get distribution. And in that regards, we already had distribution, so I knew we were blessed. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of like, you know what it's like? It's like if you took your life over 50 or 60 years and then you compressed it into a month and a half with all the trials and tribulations. That's sort of the metaphor for it.
Mm. But it doesn't show. It doesn't show in the end product. The end product is so good
Thank
that you
you.
would never think there was all this craziness behind the scenes.
You can tell when things are crazy in movies, and you can tell from the flow of the edit. When things don't lock in,
Mm.
then you know there were problems. Maybe they didn't have enough coverage. Maybe there were too many opinions. Maybe the actors didn't want to be there, you know. But thank you for saying that. I mean, I'm very proud of that film for a number of reasons. One, mainly because my father, who passed away, for some reason, this was his favorite script.
Oh, right.
I mean, he said to me, "Promise me you'll make that movie." And he'd never really ever talked about any of the films I've made, like, promise me. For some reason, he was like, "Please make it." So you know, had to sort of honor that, or try to.
Mm. Well, I'm sure, what I mean, was he watched it from somewhere and was impressed with like the opening and the ending are so, oh man, they catch you.
Thank you.
Like were they always, the vision for opening the film and ending the film? And
I think the thing is you have to there's two things that happen in a movie. This is just again, um, you that first frame is ultimately the film because
yeah.
you can't come back from that. And you have to strike and you have to strike hard and you have to get, a reason for people to carry on watching. Most people lose interest in the first 3 minutes of a film, right? So if it's like, well, hang on, this is unusual. What's going on here? I mean, we made a conscious effort to not hear any dialogue for the first couple of minutes. The ending, there's a great screenwriter called Robert McKee, and he said, if you have a fantastic ending, the audience will forgive you of any mistakes that have come before. That ending was tricky because I wasn't sure how it was going to land.
Okay.
I wasn't sure. I knew that the performances would be really, really strong. And this is the thing about working with fantastic actors like Esme Creed Miles and Peter Dinklage is that you can be surprised if you
Mm.
give. They're going to show you. Good actors understand subtext. They understand it emotionally, and I think they nailed it. I mean, it felt like they nailed it anyway.
Oh,
Start strong,
they
end
truly
strong.
did. Yeah,
Start strong.
it was very haunting. Like that end image and just the expressions on the face, like they've been through shit. You know what I mean? Like it was a harrowing experience, even though it might seem that this is all now nice and pretty and great. Like what got them there was difficult.
Yeah, I mean, like, in the book, which was written by Joe Lansdale, she has a lot of babies and they end up together and they have a lot of kids. And she dies in childbirth for one of them. It's
Yeah.
tragic. And I just didn't want to go there. I sort of loved these characters and I just wanted them to I just wanted to experience it. I mean, there is, as you say, there's a lot going on. Um, but two amazing actors. How are you going to argue with Peter Dinklage? You know, who's also a producer on the project and was fantastic.
Mm, yeah.
Amazing producer. Amazing. One of the best I've had.
Okay.
Oh, it's tremendous. Yeah, he really, really. I mean, I just speaking to the lead singer of Metallica, James Hetfield. I had a dream, and I woke up in the morning and I was like, I have to have James Hetfield in this movie, which is kind of a big ask because he's such a big sort of presence in the music world. I called Peter and I was like, I gotta get him. And Peter, I said, we have to get him. And he agreed. And he and I went on this sort of pursuit of James Hetfield. And a week later, we were talking to him, which never happens. But Peter knew this wonderful writer director called Sasha Gervais, who did a movie called Anvil. And we tracked him down. It was crazy. And James was like, he said, I've always wanted to do a dark, twisted Western, and I'm ready in my life to do that. He's great to
Okay.
work, great to work with, great to work with.
Oh man, like what was it that made you think this film is James Hetfield?
The dream, I just had this dream. I know how insane that must sound, but yeah, I just like, I've dreamt it. It was also with Andrew Schultz. So Andrew Schultz came up. So my wife and I were in India during COVID. We went and she was looking at these amazing clips on TikTok,
Mm.
and she would say to me, uh, you know, you should check this guy out. And I would watch him and I would laugh. Anyway, um, I came back and I was casting the film and I was talking to Leslie Grace's agent who plays Jimmy Sue. I said, well, who else do you represent? And he said, I represent Andrew Schultz. And I'm like, get him that script. And then Andrew hadn't done a lot of acting before, but
Mm.
I knew that there was something brilliant in him, and he is. Um, and we did a boot camp. We did a 5-day boot camp where, I mean, arguably, I like to think I helped him become the sort of actor. Um, he was so open, so intelligent. He's kind of a remarkable guy. I'm so humbled and grateful that he decided to do it. He didn't need to do the film, but he wanted to. It's
Mm.
great, great, great human being. So smart. So smart.
Well, I'd say this is his best performance
I
so far.
mean, so far. I mean, I don't listen. The guy goes out and plays to stadiums. He didn't need to do a film anyway. So there was that. I mean, uh, get Gbenga Akinnagbe was phenomenal, great human being, wonderful to sort of work with. I mean, I had a really nice group. Juliette I met Juliette twice. I met Juliette when I cast her, and I met Juliette after the movie, and everything in between was Cutthroat Bill. It
And she
was
was
very,
fantastic. Oh, and that last scene with her, oh my God, that was just
that was
so
her idea.
good. Really?
Yeah, because we had a different we had a different line. The original line was like, "That don't hurt too much," and then she came over. We had dinner. She came over and she goes, "You're such a brilliant actor, such great instincts." She goes, "Why don't we switch out these lines?" I was like, as a director, you have to listen to the creativity that's coming at you. Some
Mm,
directors don't. Some directors don't want it. I mean, the Coen brothers want you to say every single line as it's written. They're brilliant, but I tend to be a little bit more fluent. And she came up with this idea, and I was like, "Great, let's do it." We did it. We did it. We did it both ways. We did it both ways. But
right, right.
her instincts were right.
Oh, it just really screamed to, you know what I mean? Like you can be one thing, but when it's all said and done, there's just these core things everyone wants. You know what I mean? And so in that scene, you just like it just cut everything away and you just get that thing and you're just like, oh shit.
Well, she was definitely channeling those demons, and her father was a really famous character actor called Jeffrey Lewis, who, had done a western called High Plains Drifter with Clint Eastwood,
Mm.
and he played a villain. And she also felt she said this to me afterwards that she sort of felt like it was an homage to him. There's my wife, there she goes, and yeah, I think she was channeling. There was, there's the sort of thing that actors do. They pull from the well. She definitely channeled it. I would love to work with her again. I think she's such an incredible talent. She absolutely commits, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we just all of those performances were so good. Like, you know what I mean? Where the characters went, what you might perceive the characters to be, and then their evolution was fantastic.
Thank you. Well, there was some writing that was done. That's the other thing. With movies, you're always writing, right?
Yeah.
So, when you're writing the script, you're making your film. You're making the film from the writer's point of view. As soon as you move over into prep, you're making the film as you really want it in your head, and then there's a practicality of it when you're shooting,
Mm.
when you're making the movie. But the best part of the filmmaking process, from my point of view, is the edit, because that's where you take the footage and you can really shape emotion, really shape story. I had an editor called Jean-Christophe Bouzy who he'd never cut a movie in English before.
Oh,
And he
interesting.
had done a movie called Tartane, which had won a Cannes Film Festival years ago. And I didn't want a US point of view on making a Western, because that comes with certain ideas.
Mm.
And a lot of the good ideas in that came out of our collaboration. I mean, huge respect for him, and I really, really had a great time. I mean, he was cutting in Paris. God, this sounds pretentious, but he was cutting in Paris, and then I brought him to Los Angeles, and we would do this thing where we would edit for half a day, and then we go and have an adventure in Hollywood because he'd never been there, and then I would bring in some of his heroes. Like there's a screenwriter called Eric Roth who wrote Benjamin Button and Forrest Gump, and I would bring Eric in, and we would do notes with Eric Roth, and I think that was a real treat for him. Eric was wonderful. He gave us some brilliant notes. Yeah, I mean, like, um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I could do that experience again, Kevin. I have to be honest. It was such a hard film. I don't know if I would do the that again. I would. You know, I'm not looking to do more westerns.
Hey, but all right, that might be so, right? But if the Thicket is the only western you do, man, well, congratulations, because you didn't make a dud, right? You can definitely.
But how's it going down in England? I mean, like I saw a really nice review from The Guardian, and um, you know, we did reviews were quite good here, but you know, I'm curious because I mean, I don't know how many people are watching it. Obviously, you want people to see it, but how's it been received?
I Yeah, it's a not because it didn't come out in cinemas here, so like as I said, I got sent it by Signature, um, who would I think handle the distribution in this country,
Yeah,
and
yeah. They do a lot. They do a lot.
yeah.
Signature. They do a lot.
So those guys, they send me through stuff all the time, and you look at it, but you don't know where else who else is getting it. Sometimes, like sometimes, with press screenings, you see who's in the room, right? There's some people you recognize, some people, and so you'd be like, okay, so it's getting covered here and here and here. Sometimes when you request interviews, like it's just like, oh no, we're only giving it to these people. You're like, okay, so it's getting covered.
Really? I
Oh,
loved what you said. I was like, and this is what's great about how we live now, like in terms of like access. Like I loved what you said, and I was like, oh wow, And then I found out you had a podcast. I was like, of course we have to do this.
oh man, that's
I'm very flattered that you decided to have me. It was very kind of you.
I mean, how could I not? Like, for me, the most interesting thing is being able to have a conversation about the film and about the process, right? And a long form conversation. I hate these 10-minute, 5-minute, little bites of stuff, because I just don't think you get the true essence of anything.
So Kevin, you're the Joe Rogan of British podcast critics.
I don't know about that,
Or
but
Lex Friedman, who does 4.5 hours.
you know what I mean? Like, I like a conversation. That's what I said to you, man. Like, there's no fixed questions. It just goes where it
No,
goes.
it's not. It's really nice to. I mean, it's very nice to free flow. I mean, it's appreciated.
Yeah.
You're not steering it in any one direction, which is great.
Well, no, because it's like, I've got like filmmaker friends, right? I understand what goes into all of this.
Oof.
So it's just like, hey, it can take, as you said, years to make something. So why cut your time to like 15 minutes? You got 15 minutes. Tell me how you did this. Like
That's
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 such
interesting
a
what you said. You've got filmmaker friends, and it takes years. I think it takes double the amount of time in the UK to make a film.
well, yeah. it,
So I'm
it,
like, all right.
it really does.
But at least they get. I mean that they get made. I mean, there's such great talent in the UK. I mean, like, I kind of miss it. I kind of miss the banter and the environment. It's tough. It's a business here.
Mm.
Different, different.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's weird here, right? Because as I said, it's just like, you can build yourself to a point where you get to watch films, but getting to have conversations with the creators behind those films is like another thing, because you know what I mean? That's like looked at as rarefied air. They will only give that access to certain people. So you know what I mean? It becomes difficult at times, so it's always it's a weird thing, right? Where certain people get access to things, and it's saying when you're trying to make a film, to certain people can get funding and other people it's
Yeah.
blocked off. It's yeah,
I get it. It's a hierarchy.
mm, it's odd,
I mean,
but you do what you can,
listen,
and it all.
you can hustle in America. The difference is in America. Listen, it's a big business. In England, it's a little. It's a little more nuanced. Um, but there's also like a place for everyone.
Yeah.
I think, and like there's a different when a Brit says no, they mean no. It also means when they say yes, they mean yes. In Hollywood, when they say yes, they mean no. And when they say no, they mean maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's converse. But like as a filmmaker, we're all dreamers, and in Hollywood, you're able to sort of dream, but they have this phrase, they kind of yes you to death, and after a while, I mean, I've been here 28 years, you kind of get used to the language. It's different. That's what I'm saying I miss about England is like,
Mm.
hearing the voices and the chatter, and it's less about money, and a little bit more about quality. I mean, a show like, did you see Adolescence?
Did I see Adolescent?
It's on Netflix. It's like the number one show in the world about the kid in Mer,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
that show is phenomenal. That show would never be greenlit in America.
Oh, really?
Baby Reindeer would never be greenlit in America. No way. You know, and that's again what's great about England. You'll take risks. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I think it adds to something, right? When you can see things from these different points of view. That's why I love, you know, the ability to open things up because you get so many different voices and you can get these different stories. So when you look at films made in England, you look at films made in the States, you look at some of these other European films, right? It's interesting, covering films that are made in like places like India, and it's just you get this different kind of story. I covered like a TV pilot made in South Africa, and it's a different kind of storytelling, but it's still good. It's still interesting, and I think there's a beauty to
I think
that.
he said that earlier in terms of like about story. If it's good, if you have a good story, you build it, they will come. And I think you're right. I think that's the sort of what's been brilliant about Sinners is that it really is like it's sort of an original film,
Mm,
and it was able to cut through because it was good, you
yeah.
know. And obviously they had a huge marketing campaign, and that doesn't hurt. I mean, that's the other thing in the business here. Everything's led by marketing.
Oh, for it it's kind of crazy when you see the budget of the film and then it's like the marketing budget is and you're just like, yo,
I
what are
mean,
you doing with that money? Like,
take a little film like Anora, right? Anora cost $6 million to make,
mm,
and it made around $28 million, which is not insignificant, right? But the campaign for the Oscars and all the marketing was $18 million.
yeah,
So nobody makes a penny on that.
no.
So we're speaking to you know, most sort of studio films now, whereas it used to be like the executive would say, okay, let's green light this, let's go. Uh, you have to bring the marketing department in because ultimately they're the ones that feel, hey, can we get people to come and watch it?
Mm, yeah. It's an odd one because I don't look at trailers like a
Really?
lot. Yeah, I find that the trailer gives too much away sometimes,
Yeah, you're probably right.
or
Yeah.
creates a different vibe. You know what I mean? Like, because I remember back in the day going into certain films thinking, oh, it's a comedy. And then the trailer is like, it's not. Or it's like the trailer makes it play like it's a hard drama, but it's not a
Agree.
hard You know what I mean? So I'm just like, because when I saw Gladiator and The Matrix, that was just because someone called me up. A friend called me up and was like, yo, you want to go to the cinema? I'm like, okay. I had no clue what was playing at the time and just being blown away by these films. And I was just like, I just want that experience every time. So I try not to see trailers.
Huh. Well, that's really, I never really thought about that. I suppose, yeah, if you're enticed by the poster, you're sort of, you kind of go in blind. I don't disagree with you that sort of trailers right now sort of give away the farm. But I also think it's kind of, it's we're in attention span universe right now. So you are right that you'll get the summation of the film. I think it's going to be a great year for cinema, though. I really do. I mean, you've got like 28 years later coming out. You've
Oh
got
my,
these
that
phenomenal
trailer.
films.
Oh my God. That's
Yeah.
because the thing, like, yeah, some trailers I think they give too much away or don't
War
like.
Machine. Did you see the trailer for War Machine? Oh no, of course you didn't see it. Um, there's a new movie that stars The Rock. It's a really hard sort of drama, him and Emily Blunt. It's like you haven't seen him do it. I think it's his version of The Wrestler.
Oh, it's meant to be for not, yeah, because I think the trailer dropped yesterday. I
It's funny
think.
with the trailer, and again, I'm echoing what you said, which was, that story front to back,
Yeah.
and they've made a conscious decision to sort of do that. It looks really interesting. I hope it works.
Oh man, because I've been a huge fan of the UFC since early 2000s. You
Oh,
know what I
then
mean?
you will love the story I'm trying to make next. Do you know who Lightning Lee Murray was?
Yes.
Oh, I'm supposed to do the story of Lightning Lee Murray.
Oh, shut up.
No, I
Oh
we
my,
bought we got the right. I got the rights. It took me something like 10 years to get those rights.
rah.
And if anyone watching this doesn't know, Lightning Lee Murray was this former UFC fighter who was sort of disgraced and decided to pull off the largest cash heist in the history of England
Which was so
and got away with it, and then was sort of went on the run and moved to Morocco, where he's now still in prison,
yeah.
like 20 years later.
Mm.
Um, yeah, that movie has been Darren Aronofsky trying to make it, Gareth Evans trying to make it. There's a couple of other guys. At one point, Statham was attached to it,
Mm.
but now it's sort of landed in my lap. But
Oh man.
that's I love. I mean, I love that story. I love that story when I first heard it, and luckily I was able to get it. Took a long time.
Yeah, no, because I'd heard them talk about looking to make that film, but and the names attached and all of this, but then it kind of went away. So I
Because
had
it's hard. It's hard because
Mm.
Lee is such a divisive character. But I found a way into him because he's a very moral guy for a bank robber. He has a set of very strict code. I'm not saying I mean, I'm not in pre-production or anything like that, but this is something that is a desire. I mean, again, when you finish a movie, and I finish The Thicket, you know, you think that you're going to go on and make your next movie straight away, but you don't.
Yeah.
You sort of dream about projects, but like, speaking to what you said earlier about good story, we're able to sort of like, if you can create a story that's palpable, then you'll attract the sort of people.
Mm. Yeah. So when you finish a film, or like at what point are you thinking about the next one?
I mean, you're thinking about ideas as you're making it, but I've never been a guy that's lined up project after project. Maybe I should have done. I just think it depends. You've come to the end of the film and you feel sort of very differently, and you're like, well, what world do I want to live in next? You have this thing when you finish a film, and when you finally finish all the press and you do all the marketing. I mean, you go through this postpartum where you're like, hang on a minute, where are my 250 friends? Where's my 10-minute standing ovation? And it just stops.
Mm.
Okay, and then it's just you again, and you're like, well, okay, what do I want to do? And certainly for me, a movie has to hit me in the head because I know what a commitment it is to make one. So right now, I have a few projects I'm kind of excited about. Um, but we'll see where the journey, takes me. I'm not looking to make Star Wars, and Star Wars isn't looking for me.
I, I mean,
They're
yeah,
not. They're not. It's
but
not where I
I
want to live. It's not a universe I would want to live in. And
no.
there are far sort of stronger directors that can handle that. Kevin, we got to get into sort of slowing it down, unfortunately, because I got to get on with
Ah,
the
yeah.
day. As much as I've loved talking to you.
Oh man, this has been so great. And as I
Yeah.
said, this is why I love doing this, because you can have these great conversations with like incredible creatives. And this was a joy, man. Thank you so
No,
much.
it was a pleasure. I hope we. Sorry, my wife decided to just
Don't
show
worry.
up. It's
Don't
okay. You know what I mean? She's kind of a ham. She has to be in every frame. A real, But my wife is my muse as well. She's kind of amazing to work with. She corrects me. But Kevin, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. I sincerely hope you'll have me back when I do
Oh,
the next one.
yeah, that goes without question, man. Like, even if the Lee Murray one isn't the next project, like I am so interested to see what you do next, because the Thicket
So
is
am I.
so
So,
good.
so are you about to stop recording? Are you about to stop recording?
No.
Oh, do you
Yeah,
mind if
this
we do you
is
mind if we do?
yeah.
Thank you.
All right, man. Well, take it
Hang on.
easy
Oh
and
yeah, I
looking.
have a question for you when you've stopped recording.
Okay. All right, man. Thank you for your time, man. People,
Pleasure.
go check out the Thicket and everything else Elliott has done. Thank you, man.
All right, man.